Hi, Professor Ku. Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so Professor Han said he just cannot attend today's presentation. So shall I continue?
Why don't you give another couple more minutes so we can have more people?
Okay, sure.
Okay, 시작하죠.
So, hello everyone. So, in today's presentation, I'm going to introduce a paper which is about to detect the fake generative faces using the irregular pupil shapes. So, I will divide it. So I will divide today's presentation into 4 parts. The first one, it is the background. I will introduce some brief backgrounds about the real and generated human eyes, and then the GAN-generated face detection, and then it is the proposed method. And then we will move to the experiments. Finally, I will give you a brief conclusion about this proposed method. So for starters, the backgrounds. So I would like to introduce anatomy of the human eyes. So in this picture, we have 3 parts. The first part is the white parts. The white parts, it is called the sclera, and then in the middle, it is the second part. It is called the iris. The iris, it can always represent as a blue color, as blue or in brown. so that it depends on the people. So the third part, it is the pupil. So the pupil is black. So in this presentation, so in this paper, the authors use the boundary, the outer boundary of the pupil to detect the fake generative faces. So this is the background of the human eyes. So and then, so does this kind of the irregular shape exist? Always exist in the GAN-generated faces? So the answer is yes. So you can see on the left, it is the pupils from the real human. So for the pupils of the real human, it is always a smooth, it always a smooth ellipse. And then on the contrary, so for the GAN-generated human faces, the pupil of this kind of the faces, it always represent as a irregular shape. So this kind of the irregular shape, it is always happen in the GAN-generated faces. So this picture represent three kinds of the faces, which from the different kind of the GAN generation faces. So that it can so we can tell from this picture that this kind of the irregular shape of the pupil, it is always exist in the GAN generative faces. So rather than the irregular shape of the pupil, so the researchers use different kinds of the physical cues to detect the fake generated human faces. So for example, so some of the paper use different colors of the two eyes to detect the fake human faces. And then some of them use the missing reflection details from the eyes to detect the human faces, fake human faces. Some of them use the artifacts from the different part of the face to detect. So furthermore, so the abnormal landmarks of the synthetic faces also can be used to detect the fake human faces. So we can also use the fraction from the pupils to detect. So I just want to summarize. There are some related works of the GAN-generative face detection. So let's move to today's proposed measure. So today's proposed measure, it is based on the irregular pupil shape in order to detect the GAN-generative faces. So for the overview, so we have a human faces here. We have a human face here. So we want to detect this face firstly, and then we want to locate where the eye is, and then we use some kind of the segmentation methods to segment the pupil, and then we want to use some kind of the method to feed an ellipse to this segmentation mask. So then we can compare this ellipse to the segmentation mask to compare the similarities between them. So at the very beginning, so that we want to use a face detection methods to locate where the human faces is, and then we want to use a unit-based segmentation method to segment the pupil segmentation mask. And then after we get this kind of the pupil segmentation mask, we want to use some kind of the methods to fit a perfect ellipse, so that we can compare two of them. So for the ellipse fitting methods, we use this formula to define an ellipse, so that we have the ellipse parameters theta here. So we can tell that when this formula be equal to 0, we can find the perfect fit ellipse. So we want to the fitting solution. It is that to minimizing the sum of the square distance SSD over the n data points from the pupil boundary. So when we optimize this this optimization object, so that we can use the gradient based optimization methods from the reference. So that after we find the ellipse, so that we use some kind of the measures to evaluate the similarity between this fitted ellipse to the segmentation map. So in this paper, it used a really new measures, which is called the boundary IOU, in order to evaluate the similarities. So so for this matrix, so that it evaluates the two kind of the boundary regions. So first of all, we have the ground truth here. The ground truth here, it is an airplane. So that we have also the prediction here. The boundary IOU matrix want to evaluate the similarities between these two segmentation masks. So the measure, it is that it use some kind of the boundary region. The boundary region, it is defined by the mask pixels within the deep pixels from the boundaries. So it is represented as the blue area in this prediction mask. It is represented as the orange color. So in the boundary IOUs, so they evaluate the inception, the intersection between the boundary areas from the ground truth and the predictions, and the union between the boundary area from the ground truth and the prediction, so that we can get the boundary IOU scores. So for this kind of the scores, in this kind of the boundary IOU scores, the distance parameter D control the similarities that how this BIOU measures to the boundary to the object boundaries. So in the experiments in this paper, the D it is set as 4. So next, I will introduce about the experiments. So in the experiments, so that we use the FSHQ dataset, and then we select 600 images from each class. So from the real faces and the fake faces, and then we use the style GAN to generate the fake faces. So we can see in this picture, I demonstrate they also demonstrate the results in this picture. So on the left side, so we can see that the pupils from real human faces are always perfect ellipse. So that also the B boundary scores is high. It is always higher than the 0.8. So on the contrary, so the pupils from GAN-generated human faces, they always have irregular irregular shapes, so that the BIOU, the BIOU scores, the BIOU scores in this kind of the GAN-generated human faces are always low. So it is always lower than the 0.4. So this is some experimental results of this method. So, and then on the left, it is that the distribution of the BIOU scores. So it can tell the BIOU scores can always separate two kinds of the faces perfectly. And then the IOU curve in the middle tells that the AUC can be 0.1, and it is a really high accuracy. And then some ablation study have done, it is said that the so when we use a higher D parameters, so that the IOU scores will drop. And then the limitation of this paper, so that when the pupils are infected, some humans' eyes are infected, so that it can suffer from the irregular shape of the pupil. So it can affect the accuracy of the detection of the human face. And then some occlusions can also have the negative effect on the fake human face detection task. So this is a limitation of the proposed method. And then it is the conclusion. So the conclusion that in this paper, it shows the probability, it shows the potential of the GAN-generated faces can be identified by the exploiting the regularity of the pupil shapes. And then a method have already been proposed that the pupil localization and the segmentation and performance, it is fitting to the segmented pupils to estimate the boundary IOU scores, so that it can be used for the further classification task. So the proposed method it is simple but effective. So the future works it is that the authors want to investigate mode for the inconsistencies between the two pupils of the GAN-generated face, and such as the different kind of the geometric shapes and the relative locations of the pupils in the two eyes. Okay, that brings us to the end of today's presentation. Any questions?
Can we go back to maybe page 12?
12.
Right. I meant the next page.
Okay.
13.
Okay.
Okay. So here you have ground truth and prediction, right? And
yes.
You have the IOU evaluation. So I think it's probably very important to have a good prediction.
Yes,
right?
You're right.
In order to make this overlap perfectly fitting. So how does this prediction be made?
This prediction, it is made by the semantic segmentation methods. So it offers the prediction of the segmentation map.
Okay, so the segmentation map produces this prediction, right?
Yes.
Based on some training. And,
yes,
and I guess what I meant to say is, especially about the pupil, right?
Yes, the pupil.
Right, the pupil. But there's no mention of such training that's being done.
Yes.
Which I think is very important. And
mm-hmm.
whether that if you could, I guess, do this prediction on the pupil, you could do this for any type of segmentation targeted object, right?
Yes, of course.
Including maybe the facial shape, parts of the face, as well as like the shape of the pupil,
Yes, for sure.
right? So predictions are made by using some sort of a segmentation map, and it goes through some training. So that's going to probably require a lot of data, looking at just maybe the pupil and human face. Is there some sort of an experiment that was done, some evidence?
Evidence?
You know?
I'm not
Right.
sure. So in this paper, he just focused on the pupil segmentation.
Right.
So
Okay. So that's actually, I'm pretty curious about that, right? How many of human faces would be required to make good predictions of different parts, different facial parts, especially those of the eyes,
you're right. Yes.
right, of many different people.
So okay,
Like
I will do
young,
some
old,
further research.
male, female, different ethnic group and so forth. They should be all pretty much different.
Yes.
So just curious. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So another interesting thing is about the GAN-generated pupil. Why the shape is not very much spherical compared to say other say parts of the human face, right? So the author, for some reason, picked human the pupils, right, as opposed to any other parts that tend to show difference, not
I'm not so sure
like
about
very
this.
much circular. But then the GAN-generated facial parts, there's no problem, and I mean, looks like that they're all okay. But except pupil, that's sort of like strange, don't you think?
Yes, I think yes. So in this page, I show some artifacts from the different part of the face. You can see the lips or the hair or the nose of the GAN-generated faces. It shows some strength there. So this is not just for the pupil. So in in this paper, the authors only focus on the pupil because I think the authors reckon that the pupil represent this kind of the I think it is the robustness of this kind of the fake GAN-generated faces detection using the irregular shape of the pupil. It is more stable.
Okay, well, that could be correct, but at the same time, you know, the size of a pupil is pretty much very small compared to the entire body size, like the face size. So if you capture a person's human face in a image, a picture like this,
Yes.
right? Compared to other parts of the face, size of the pupil is so extremely small. And just to be able to tell that the shape of the pupil is irregular would actually require high resolution images.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes.
So that's another thing. You know, people tend to use pupil for other purposes, but usually because of the requirement for high resolution, usually it fails. Usually, like, you know, people say that pupil could be used for identity purpose, but that's only when you have very high resolution camera. So this is maybe they're working on some sort of a security camera looking at pupils. That's why maybe they might have more data set on human pupils.
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, just you know, to let you know that the author, right? Xiwei Liu. He's a good friend of this lab, actually. I don't know if you realize that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And Ming-Ching Chang. Yeah, these two guys.
Yes. Okay.
The last two authors. Xiwei Liu and Ming-Ching Chang. These were the they helped me organize AVSS
Okay.
a couple of years ago in Taiwan.
Oh, really? 2019.
Yeah. Sorry?
I think it is in the 2019 AVSS
Okay, right.
in Taipei.
You went there, right? Did you go
No,
there?
no.
Oh, you
Not
didn't.
really.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's all for my
Okay.
questions. So if you're interested, you could maybe, you know, send him an email and ask for some data set or something if you're interested.
Yes, of course. Yes. Any questions?
오케이, 질문이 없는 것 같네요.
네.
수고 많았습니다.
네, 감사합니다.